Where could a meeting between Zelensky and Putin take place? Where can a war criminal go? And what is international justice capable of? I'll tell you more in this episode. I'm Salomia Bidvitska. This is TSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch the broadcast, and be sure to comment on what you found most interesting. And now, here are a few of today's topics. Talks in Washington.
For the first time, I had the opportunity to talk about such things with the President of the United States, with his team, without reading from notes.
What was agreed upon in the Oval Office, and what further steps should we expect to bring about a just peace? Attacks on Ukrainian cities.
The entire apartment is gone, completely burned down.
Which Ukrainian cities were hit by missiles and shaheeds on the day of the talks between Trump, Zelensky, and European leaders? Those who ended the friendship.
We worked in those areas where enemy activity was high. Every day, we repelled assaults.
How important targets on Russian territory are being destroyed and how others are being encouraged to join in. The legendary 14th Regiment of the Unmanned Systems Forces is inviting new members to join its ranks. Putin has agreed to a face-to-face meeting with Zelensky or with the mediation of the US president. And the Trump administration has already started organizing it. That's the main outcome of the talks at the White House. There, Volodymyr Zelensky met with Donald Trump, as well as the leaders of France, Germany, the United Kingdom, Italy, Finland, and representatives from NATO and the European Commission. As a result, Zelensky stated that he is ready to talk with Putin, including about the occupied territories. In fact, TSN's correspondent in the US, Ol Koshelenko, was observing from the inside.
Never before has the White House hosted so many top world politicians for simultaneous talks. European leaders postponed their vacations, work matters, and changed their schedules in order to come to negotiations with Donald Trump together with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The anticipation was extremely tense. Behind them was the negative experience of Trump and Zelensky's negotiations in February this year at the White House, as well as Trump's very positive meeting with Putin last Friday in Alaska. The worst fears did not come true. President Trump behaved amicably. He greeted President Zelensky on the steps of the West Wing, personally escorted him to the Oval Office, and defused journalists' attempts to ask provocative questions. Zelensky appeared in a hybrid version of a suit. No longer military attire, but not quite business style either. The same blogger who last time provoked with a question about the outfit got a comeback from Zelensky.
First of all, President Zelensky, you look great in this suit. I said the same thing. You look good.
I said the same thing. Remember? That's the one who attacked you last time. See, I remember.
I apologize. You look great. My first question to you, President Zelensky.
But you're wearing the same suit. See, I changed clothes, but you didn't.
The President of the United States promised to establish lasting peace for Ukraine, not just a pause for a few years after which the fighting would resume again. Before the start of the expanded format negotiations, a snippet of a private conversation between Trump and French President Macron was accidentally picked up by a live microphone.
I can call Putin and arrange a three-way meeting. You know, I think he wants to make a deal. I think he wants to make a deal with me. Do you get that? As crazy as that sounds.
Before the negotiations began, the American side insisted that both warring countries would have to make concessions, which, in Ukraine's case, meant giving up some of its territories to Russia. European leaders supported Zelensky's position, who refused to give up land to the occupier.
Ukraine should not be forced to make any territorial concessions. Russia's demand that Kiev give up the free parts of Donbass, for comparison, is equivalent to the US giving up Florida. A sovereign state can't just decide something like that. This is a decision that Ukraine must make on its own during negotiations.
The issue of territories was discussed in the Oval Office. The Americans even displayed a map of Ukraine showing, in percentages, the land occupied by Russia. After the negotiations, Zelensky said he brought his own map and, for the first time, showed President Trump the real situation on the ground in detail. Ultimately, Zelensky stated that he is only willing to discuss the fate of the occupied territories with Putin.
For the first time, I had the opportunity to talk about these things with the President of the United States and his team, not just reading from notes, but truly understanding, not just using cue cards, but really knowing every square kilometer of our land, which, forgive me, is soaked in the blood of our soldiers. And for me, this is a very sensitive moment. I wanted to talk about this. I think the President heard and saw it, and we. There were different moments, but this is important information, and that's why the issue of territories, that's a matter we'll keep between me and Putin.
During a break in the negotiations, Trump managed to call Putin. In a post on Truth Social, he announced that Putin had agreed to a face-to-face meeting with Zelensky.
After the meeting ended, I called President Putin and began preparations for a meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky at a location to be determined later. After this meeting, we will have a trilateral meeting with both presidents and myself.
The organization of negotiations between the presidents of the warring sides was confirmed by German Chancellor Merz. He says this could happen within the next 2 weeks. And President Macron of France. He said he doesn't believe in Putin's good intentions, so they also discussed a backup plan in case he tries to sabotage the process.
The discussion was about the possibility that no result would be achieved. The possibility that Russia might not genuinely want to participate in this process. And at that moment, Trump announced his readiness and willingness to introduce what he calls primary and secondary tariffs, which are essentially sanctions.
They also discussed security guarantees for Ukraine. Trump warned the U.S. is ready to coordinate and support, but the main responsibility should fall on the Europeans. The next step should be a meeting either in a bilateral format between Zelensky and Putin face-to-face or in a trilateral format with Donald Trump as a mediator. The president of Ukraine says, "We are ready for any scenario, but neither the format, nor the time, nor the place has been determined." From Washington, United States, Ol Koshelenko, Maxim Shinkarenko, PSN 1+1.
Work on security guarantees for Ukraine at the leaders' level continues today. Volodymyr Zelensky reported this on his Telegram channel. According to him, national security advisors are in constant contact. The meeting of the coalition of the Resolute took place online. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal writes that on the American side, the working group that will develop a detailed project for security guarantees for Ukraine will be headed by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. It will also include national security advisors and NATO representatives. The guarantees will consist of 4 components: military presence, air defense, weaponry, and monitoring of the cessation of hostilities. And as soon as tomorrow, military leaders from NATO countries will gather to discuss further steps regarding the situation in Ukraine. This is reported by Reuters. According to its sources, the Supreme Allied Commander has convened a regular meeting at the level of chiefs of staff to inform them about the results of the recent meeting between Presidents Trump and Putin in Alaska. However, General Dan King himself will join the meeting online, though this format may still change, according to the agency's sources. As for where exactly President Zelensky might meet with the Kremlin dictator, where he could travel and avoid arrest, TSN correspondents will tell you more about that in just a few minutes. But for now, let's move on to other news. Drones and other types of weaponry. The Russians attacked various regions of Ukraine. A man was wounded in the Dnipropetrovsk region. The occupiers struck the Nikopol district with FPV drones and artillery. A fire broke out. An apartment building and a private house were damaged. And in the Sinelnikov district, a school caught fire after a drone attack. In Kostantinivka, Donetsk region, the Russians attacked with MLRS and artillery. 3 city residents were killed and 4 more people were wounded. In Dobropilya, a woman was killed by an enemy air bomb. 3 people were injured. There is also 1 person killed in Novonetsk and 1 wounded in Sloviansk. In Ruskolozova, Kharkiv region, 2 women were injured. In the village of Paramoha, a family was affected. The mother is in the hospital, and her husband and 2 children are suffering from acute shock reactions. War criminals shelled Chornobevka in the Kherson region with artillery. An 11-year-old boy walking down the street was caught in the attack. The child was hospitalized with shrapnel wounds. Another man suffered blast injuries in Kherson due to an enemy drone attack. 3 attack drones struck civilian infrastructure in Sumy. Another one hit a house in the village of Pishchain. A woman was injured. And in Zaporizhia, 13 settlements came under fire. 54 sites were destroyed or damaged. Among them are private houses and cars. The number of people injured as a result of the enemy attack on the industrial district of Kharkiv yesterday has risen to 24. Among the wounded are 6 children. Rescuers are still working at the site where the residential building was hit. All the details will be reported by TSN correspondent Ilya Boyko.
For the first time since the enemy attack, residents of the destroyed building were able to enter their apartments and assess the damage. Many had been left homeless. Some apartments were completely burned out, while others were damaged by the blast wave. People are trying to save at least some of their belongings.
There's a lot I need to take out of my apartment, but I have nowhere to put it and nothing to transport it with the furniture, all the appliances. The building will most likely be demolished.
Second floor, the apartment is gone. There's nothing left. The apartment is gone. Today is the first time they let us in because the debris blocking our apartment was the worst. An entire floor you couldn't get through.
Russian forces attacked the industrial district of Kharkiv with drones on Monday. 5 enemy drones hit the apartment building. A massive fire broke out. Entire floors were destroyed.
An expert assessment will be carried out now. What I saw, and what the experts told me, is that the destruction is very severe. The damage is very serious. The load-bearing structure is damaged, badly damaged. As for the people, they are currently registering for the e-renovation and e-auxilia programs.
As a result of this attack, 24 people were injured, 3 of whom remain in the hospital, 2 adults and a teenager. All of them are in stable, moderate condition. Rescuers have been clearing the rubble of the building for the 2nd day in a row. Although there is no official information about missing persons, they are working around the clock, only taking breaks during air raid alerts.
During the work, air raid sirens have gone off multiple times. At the very least, each air raid alert delays things by at least half an hour. It slows us down. According to preliminary data, there are no people under the rubble, but rescuers will still continue to clear the debris and clean out the interior until the work is completely finished.
At the moment, it is known that 7 people have died. Among them, it is likely an entire family. The parents, a 1.5-year-old girl, a 16-year-old boy, and their grandmother. Experts are conducting DNA tests to definitively confirm the identities of the deceased. In memory of those killed by the Russians, people are leaving flowers and candles next to the destroyed building. Yulia Boyko and Oleksiy Bufienko, Kharkiv, TSN 1+1.
3 minors have already been injured as a result of the missile attack on Zaporizhia on August 18. A 14-year-old boy and a 16-year-old girl were hospitalized. A 17-year-old young man is also in the hospital. The number of people injured as a result of the attack on the city has risen to 36. 3 more people have died. The Russians struck Zaporizhia with 2 Iskander missiles around 9 o'clock on Monday morning, targeting a densely populated residential area. There is damage to critical infrastructure. Market stalls caught fire, and more than 10 apartment buildings were damaged, just as many private houses, 2 schools, a kindergarten, pharmacies, coffee shops, and stores were also affected.
We were standing here on the street. The strike came from over there. There are no windows left. No windows, yeah.
After the first explosion, I went outside, walked around the corner. It's a good thing my wife wasn't here.
There will be no American troops in Ukraine, and Zelensky should show some flexibility. Donald Trump gave a fresh interview to his favorite channel, Fox News. The politician was asked about the results of yesterday's talks with the Ukrainian president and European leaders. The U.S. president believes that Zelensky is doing what he has to, but at the same time, he needs to show flexibility. Regarding the issue of territories, the American leader stated that Ukraine could end up gaining a lot of territory. And right away, he started talking about the strength of the Russian army. They touched on the topic of security guarantees. Trump once again ruled out joining NATO and the use of their military in Ukraine. At the same time, he clarified that Washington is somehow ready to help Europeans make this happen by providing air support. What this actually means in practice is still unknown. The US president also stated that he would help arrange a bilateral meeting between Putin and Zelensky, although at first he considered a trilateral format. He explained this by saying that supposedly the Ukrainian and Russian leaders are in a better position than he had thought. At the same time, the politician is convinced that Putin is so tired of the war that reaching an agreement shouldn't be a problem. But where exactly could the meeting between Zelensky and the Kremlin dictator take place? The Russians themselves suggested holding the meeting in Moscow, but the president of Ukraine categorically refused. At the same time, Switzerland is offering to hold the meeting in Geneva and promises Putin immunity despite the ICC warrant. This was stated by Foreign Minister Ignacio Casas, who noted that he has already discussed this more than once with the head of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Lavrov. Hungary is also trying to compete for the right to host the meeting between Putin and Zelensky. By the way, Hungary is also a party to the agreement, but in May it began the process of withdrawing from the Rome Statute. Prime Minister Orban has previously stated that he is ready to welcome the dictator in his country. The meeting could take place within the next 2 weeks. At least, that's what Trump himself claims. And while Volodymyr Zelensky can travel anywhere, things are much more complicated with Putin. He is banned from entering 125 countries around the world, including Ukraine. Last year, we ratified the Rome Statute and, together with the Council of Europe, also established a special tribunal for the crime of aggression. So, what is international justice capable of, and how far has Ukraine advanced in creating a tribunal in The Hague? Stay tuned to find out more.
Putin walks down the red carpet in Alaska with a deliberately confident stride. He knows he won't be arrested here. The United States does not recognize the International Criminal Court, so the criminal won't be detained on the warrant issued more than 2 years ago. Russian propaganda is actively spreading the idea Putin isn't afraid of the warrant. They say that even though Mongolia is a party to the Rome Statute, it didn't enforce the court's decision. But this claim falls apart with simple examples. Putin doesn't go anywhere unless he's given security guarantees. In 2023, he didn't go to the BRICS summit in South Africa. Last year, he also appeared online at the G20 meeting in Brazil. The number of countries still willing to host him is extremely limited. Investigating war crimes in Ukraine is a real challenge for ICC prosecutors because in the past 18 months, they've gathered more evidence than in the previous 20 years of the International Criminal Court's work. All this evidence is enough for hundreds of new warrants. Currently, there are 6. The last one was announced over a year ago, on March 5th, 2024. However, over the past year, the International Criminal Court has been going through tough times. Attempts to infiltrate the office by Russian spies, numerous hacker attacks, U.S. sanctions that literally froze the court's work, and a sexual scandal involving prosecutor Karim Khan, which broke out last year and is still ongoing. A court employee accuses him of harassment. Karim Khan has taken an extended leave while the investigation is ongoing.
The issue will be decided in September. Because, basically, what's on the agenda now is that he might resign, since this is truly a very serious blow to the reputation of the institution.
Amid the crisis at the ICC, Ukraine, together with the Council of Europe countries, announced the creation of a tribunal for the crime of aggression against Putin and his accomplices. We're talking about 20 to 30 top-level criminals of the highest rank. And not only from Russia, as Anton Karinovic, director of the Department of International Law at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, told TSN.
Now all our efforts will be focused on the third element of the package, the establishment of the governing committee of the special tribunal.
The governing committee will be something like an assembly of states parties, and accordingly, the governing committee will be responsible for all matters of administration and financing of the special tribunal's work.
The special tribunal will be able to start its work without waiting for the fighting at the front to end, and will be able to try criminals in absentia. And although this court cannot bypass the so-called immunity of the trio, the heads of state, government, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, while they are in office, their cases will still be investigated, and their crimes will not have a statute of limitations.
They are protected. International criminal law, as I say, plays the long game. So, will these high-ranking officials be brought to The Hague? Probably not. But history shows that everything changes.
In Alaska, Trump greeted Putin with a handshake, but handed over a letter from the First Lady of the United States, Melania, in which she mentions children who should live in peace and love. There was no mention of abduction, but the world perceived it precisely as a reminder of this crime, for which the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for the dictator. Natalia Yarmila, TSN 1+1.
And do you believe in the effectiveness of international justice? Share your thoughts with us in the comments under this broadcast on YouTube. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Meanwhile, I will continue with the TSN broadcast. The bodies of 1,000 fallen Ukrainians have been returned to Ukraine, including defenders from the Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Luhansk, and Kursk directions. Among them are 5 Ukrainian servicemen who died in captivity. They were on the lists of severely wounded and seriously ill prisoners and were supposed to return home according to the agreements reached in Istanbul during the second round of negotiations. This was reported by the coordination headquarters. A precise strike. Railway connections in the occupied part of the Zaporizhia region have been damaged. Spectacular footage of a swarm of FPV drones ramming a moving train carrying fuel was published by the Ronin Strike drone platoon of the 65th Brigade. This happened in the area between Eurozane and Tokmak. After the railway was blown up, the train derailed and was finished off with everything that could fly. In these shots, you can see that Russian military logistics have suffered serious damage. And as the defenders from the unit that carried out this attack write, such success was made possible thanks to your donations for FPV. They stopped the Drezhba oil pipeline, which was delivering Russian oil to Europe. The legendary 14th Regiment of the Unmanned Systems Forces invites those interested to join. It was their drones that struck the Nikolsky station in the Tambov region and halted the pumping for an indefinite period. The 14th Separate Regiment of Unmanned Aerial Complexes has already hit more than 170 strategic targets and inflicted losses on the enemy amounting to tens of billions of dollars. TSN correspondent Ol Pavlovska will tell us more.
This is how they destroy enemy Buk, Strela, Tor air defense systems, or the occupiers' armored vehicles. To ensure the most effective use of unmanned systems, experienced pilots train the newcomers in the unit.
Plus.
And this is how they launched the Dart's kamikaze UAV during training.
Plus.
It is capable of destroying enemy supply routes, fortifications, and other targets. To ensure it hits the occupiers accurately, pilots share their own experience. Moments of its use in different weather conditions, during strong gusts of wind, when there's no wind, and with a tailwind. We try to pay as much attention as possible to every little detail that could interfere with combat operations. At the controls is a fighter with the call sign Camionets. He's been with the unit since April. He says he transferred here because he wanted to develop specifically in working with unmanned systems.
We spend a lot of time on flight operations, and then we always have the opportunity to, take a break for training or to improve our skills. It's much more enjoyable for us to work here with this.
It's his first time acting as an instructor for his comrades. Franz volunteered for the military right after the full-scale invasion began. For 2 years now, he's been operating unmanned systems on the front line and knows everything about them.
We worked in areas with high enemy activity, repelling assaults every day. Day and night. There were times when they just kept coming, working non-stop.
Luffy transferred to the regiment from another unit on the advice of his comrades. Now he's honing his skills.
The main thing you need is to keep learning, to keep improving yourself, and your team gets better too. Here, people are treated with real respect. I'd say it's a people-centered unit, focused on the future.
Recruitment for the 14th Regiment of Unmanned Aerial Systems is ongoing in 3 categories. They're inviting operators, technicians, decoders, and other specialists to join the combat units. The support unit needs accountants, medics, clerks, and warehouse managers. The 3rd category is engineering and technical positions, explains the head of the recruitment unit.
That's probably our main difference compared to other units. Every one of our, combat missions is, a constant technological challenge, a constant push for technological progress. And it's precisely the engineering and technical unit that gives us the edge on the battlefield.
So I invite qualified and motivated men and women to join the service. You can view job openings, fill out an application, or get a consultation on the website of the 14th Separate Regiment of Unmanned Aerial Systems. Ol Pavlovska, Alexander Kulish, Dnipropetrovsk region, TSN 1+1.